Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is Twist Gaming, where you get to play board games with us. We are coming to you live here from Gen Con 2019, bringing you all the board game coverage all week long. As usual, I'm your host, Matt, and I'm joined with special guest, Steven from Yellow.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. This has been a great show.
Awesome. Hopefully Gen Con's been treating you all pretty well so far.
Actually, Gen Con's been treating us really well. The game that we're looking at right now, Ishtar, is so far in the voting at BGG is number one
Oh,
for the
really?
entire con for fan favorite.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're hoping that keeps up and we can show everybody why it's such a favorite.
Sounds good to me. So let's jump right into things then. So we are showing off Ishtar. So what kind of game is Ishtar?
So Ishtar actually is a little bit of a unique game. It's got a little bit of a worker placement element to it, but you've only got 4 workers and they don't come back. It's got a little bit of a territory control, but you're not really battling over territories. It's a little bit of a tile placement as well, but it's not a huge part of the game, so it's a nice little blend of all of those. It is a Bruno Cathala game, so it's got a little bit of elements. You'll kind of hear overtones and hints from some of his other older titles as well, and things that look familiar to you, but in and of itself, it's certainly standalone.
Okay. So I guess take me through a rules explanation of how do you play of Ishtar?
Yeah, sure. So Ishtar comes from the goddess Ishtar. So once long ago, the king's gardener was told that he needs to grow some gardens in the desert, and he tried and tried and was so frustrated he collapsed, crying. And finally, one of those tears fell through the earth to goddess Ishtar, and she forced it back up, and all of a sudden these fountains sprung from the sand. And so now in modern day, we are gardeners, and we've been asked for a competition to make the nicest gardens and flower beds for the queen. And whoever scores the most points in doing that becomes the king's favorite.
Are we doing that with our tiers too?
Well, you don't have to cry for real. So in the game, we're going to be doing several different things. We're going to be collecting gems to be able to purchase things. We're going to be playing these tiles to cover the area and to grow the greenery from the fountains over the sand. We've got a little bit of a tech tree or a skill card here,
I'm
where
just
we're going
do
to be
a close-up of this one here. So this is just different things that are going to increase your abilities throughout the game there.
Yeah, exactly. Lets you bend the rules a little bit, get extra resources. On the bottom row, on the top row, you'll see all the laurel wreaths at the top. Those are going to be some scoring bonuses, but you have to unlock the top bonus by opening up the bonus below it first. So you have to do them sequentially. First one on the lowest, and then you raise up to the next one.
And you show that off by this little winding path that goes through both of
Yeah,
them
exactly. And you've got to stop at the first place before you can get up to the grander location. So
there. Perfect.
all right. So yep, you put your purple gemstone on there. It really is purple. We didn't just pick that for you. It's actually Bruno picked
I mean,
purple to be the
you
start.
can just say that you picked it just for us.
Then we look like we're pandering, which we're not. So, all right, so in the game, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draft a tile. Now, these tiles have bubbles on them. They indicate they're the start tiles. And then on the back, there's
okay.
also a little sprout growing out of this
So
one.
this is going to be mostly invisible here, but I just wanted to show off the bubble here.
And then flip on the back, and there's a little sprout growing out of one of those seeds to indicate it's getting ready to grow. So those are the only tiles that'll have that. You'll notice those are face up here, but the other tiles beneath them are face down because those are randomized. In addition, the order in which these are, a bent 3, a straight 3, 3 clustered together, those are all randomized as well, but we did that ahead. So there's a lot of replayability in randomizing this because it's going to really twist the game up quite a bit. So
Sounds good.
the first thing we'll do on our turn is draft one of these tiles. We have to pick the one where the watering can is. We'll talk about how the watering can moves in just a moment, but that's our little watering can there.
Yeah, show this one off. Super
I'll show
cute
that
watering can meeple.
If you don't want to take the tile where the watering can is, you can advance by paying some gems, and we'll kind of go over that in a sec as well.
Okay.
Second thing you'll do is play that tile on the board according to some rules about how the gardens need to flow out from the fountains and how the gardens can't merge. The third thing is that you'll pick up any gems that you cover up with that tile, and you'll add those to your gem pile, and those will be spent a little bit later. The next thing is a little bit of a special action. We can add one of our gardener assistants to take over that flower bed and be able to score points on it later. Also in that same step is the possibility of climbing on your skill tree.
Okay.
And then finally, at the end of your turn, you have an opportunity to buy one of the tree cards. and those are right there in front of us. They have different values, mainly based on how many points you're going to get for each one. So certainly the higher points, you're going to need to cash in more gems for that. And a little tree token on there that will add to the board as well. So
Okay.
let's go through that right now, and we'll go into a little more detail in each of those. Well, let me get to scoring real quick so we know what we're trying to do, actually.
Sounds
So
good to me.
at the end, we're going to score. We talked about the bonuses at the top of the skill track here.
Right, the laurel wreath.
Those are certainly going to be your bonus points. But the main scoring is based on how many individual flowers are controlled by your assistants on the
Okay.
board. The second scoring point is going to be when we figure out who has possession of the fountain at the end of the game, and whoever has possession of the fountain will score 2, 4, 6, or 8 points. 8 points for the white and 6 for the red, with 4 for the purple.
So what constitutes controlling the fountain?
So controlling the fountain is going to be the total number of flower tiles or spaces, independent of how many flowers are actually on the tile, but how many of those flower spaces are controlled by each of our assistants. So if at the end, at this red fountain here, if I have 4 flower spaces controlled by my assistant and you have 5, then you're going to control the fountain and you're going to score the points from that fountain.
Okay.
And then, of course, those trees we talked about are going to add in a lot of points as well.
Gotcha.
All right, so with the scoring out of the way, we'll go ahead and draft a tile. So you, as the start player, are actually, the watering can isn't on the board yet, and you can pick any of those tiles to start. It's a dealer's choice at this point, so grab one of those tiles there in the rondelle.
So I would want to potentially then take a tile where I'm going to be covering up more gems, so that way I get those into my...
A potential strategy, and probably early on a pretty good bet.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the watering can over on this this 3 bend here.
Great.
And then, so I take this.
Yep.
And then...
And then when you place it, there are a couple of rules. It can't cover a fountain, obviously. It can't cover these sacred stones.
Okay.
If there were other tiles on the board already, of course you can't stack tiles on top of tiles. That's really the limits. Early in the game, those are the limits, but later in the game, we can't have a greenery area receive water source from 2 different fountains. So always there must be at least one strip or band or space between the 2 growing greenery areas that are growing out from the fountains. So it has to touch the fountain, and when it grows in a certain direction, it can't ever merge with another fountain's resource.
Okay, so when I play this, it has to touch the fountain right
Yep,
now?
absolutely.
Okay. So...
But not cover a sacred space.
Gotcha. So that changes up what I'm doing a little bit here, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play it over here, because I know you said something that the white fountain was worth more points.
It is. It certainly is.
So I feel like that's maybe a good move.
Yeah,
We'll find out.
Not a bad move at all. So you've taken your gems there. The next thing you can do, we've got a little icon here. There are 2 icons total. 3 icons total, but 2 are really different. This is the assistant icon. When you play it, you can take one of your 2 assistants that we start the game with, and you can place it to cover that icon. Now you can pass on that step, and this early in the game that might be a good strategy, or if you want to already start working on that valuable white fountain, you may. But I can come along, and if I place a tile in this area as well, and it has one of those icons, I might be able to claim that. You're going to have an opportunity to unlock 2 other assistants for a total of 4 workers during the game. But once you place that worker, you're never going to get him back.
All right, so I'm, because the white fountain's valuable, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put him down.
All right,
over
fantastic. Just real quick, the other icon that we do refer to is this little star icon. The star icon is the opportunity to advance on the skill tree, the skill set that we talked about here.
Oh, okay.
So on this skill tree, it shows you that if you have that star icon, you can use any 2 gems to be able to unlock any of these now lower ones.
Okay. So what's the question mark icon
The
then?
question mark's the wild. You
It's a
can use
wild.
it either for an assistant or to advance on the skill track.
Okay.
Yep. So, all right, so you've taken the action that you were allowed there, and the final thing you're allowed to do is buy one of the trees. Now, of course, we've got 3 purple. You've got 3 purple. You could buy that one there on the end.
So I think that might be a decent idea, but then I see one that's 3 purple and a white gem or clear gem there.
And it's
So
a little bit more.
yeah, I think I'm going to hold off until I get to
exactly.
that one.
So on that turn, when you're able to buy those trees, you can buy as many trees as you can afford. So you'll purchase a tree, we'll replace it with another one, and if you wanted to purchase another one, you certainly could keep going until you ran out of gems. So there's no limit to that.
Okay.
The little tree cutout wooden piece is then going to be placed on the board, and it must be placed on an open grass space. It can't be placed on a flower bed.
Gotcha.
Why that's going to become important, one of the skills that we can unlock is if you have assistants that are close to the tree, then you're going to be able to score 2 bonus points per time that happens.
And close to means adjacent to?
Close to means in a garden that that assistant controls.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So if that gardener controls that garden, he's going to get to score those points. So that's where the trees come into play. And in addition, the trees can help to block off certain areas so that flower beds can never be joined. In other words, if I wanted to keep you from later in the game covering this spot up, which could be done, the only time that a tile can be played on a tile, now you would have all of these flowers here in this area. So in order to keep you from doing that, I may just decide to plant a tree there at some point during the game and not let you be able to connect those two over there.
Okay.
So, all right. So that would be the end of your turn. You would, since you chose from this area, the first thing actually I would do, is I would move the water can. Whoops.
So it goes
over to here.
clockwise around?
It goes clockwise around, and then we would reveal now at this point what this tile is.
Okay, so this is the double grass with some 3 flowers and a building of a helper.
And an assistant token
yeah.
as well. Now, I can either accept that I'm taking this one for free, or if by spending 1 gem, I can move the watering can ahead. 2 gems, move it ahead 2. And there may be times when a particular shape or a particular bonus is going to be more beneficial to me. So I'll pick this one up for now and take this one. And let's see, I agree with you. I think the idea of grabbing those gems is pretty helpful. So let's, I'm actually going to put this here, because just like being adjacent to trees, one of the tech tree items that you can unlock is that if you're adjacent to sacred stones, you score bonuses as well. So on the odds that I might be able to do that in the future, by putting one of my assistants here, I may be able to score additional points there. Speaking of which, there's my gems that I collected. I'm going to go ahead and place an assistant since I'm given that option at this time. It's a little early in the game, but you've got one out there, so I'm willing to get one out there as well.
Okay.
And then lastly, I get a chance to buy one of those cards. I've got the 2 purple and 1 white, but I'll pass on buying a card for now as well.
All right.
We'll go back to you.
So it's going to
Go
go
advance.
around the circle. So this is another one that I can get for free then.
That's for free. And now we reveal this. Once all my planning, plotting, etc. has been determined, we'll all get to see what this tile is.
And I'm assuming you said you could spend gems to move along the track here, but I'm assuming you could only move clockwise.
That's correct.
Gotcha. All right, so I've got this 3 wide one here, and I need one more purple. I need actually a clear gem to get that. So I am going to go ahead and I want to expand my garden in order to expand my influence around that fountain. Then essentially,
if you feel that it's going to be threatened, so if I just forego this and decide to let you go ahead and run yourself into the ground trying to take over the white fountain that you're probably going to have good control over, or you may spread out your options a little bit and maybe start growing from another fountain. Now on that tile that you may or may not select, there's a question mark, so you're going to have the opportunity to add your only remaining assistant that you've unlocked, or you could go up on your skill tree and unlock one of your assistants on the skill tree that you then get to bring from the resource pool.
So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take this one here, and then I'm going to put it over in this section of the board over here. So that gets me a red and a clear gem. So that's good for me for my tree build.
It is, and you've also linked a flower bed here so that your gardener now controls these two flower beds.
And I feel like it's a good idea to go ahead and use that question mark for the tech tree then, because that gardener is dealing with that over there.
Probably a good point to advance.
So let's just go over really briefly what some of these options are here on the tech tree.
All right. So starting there on the left side, where you're unlocking 2 gems, you're going to place, anytime we unlock, you're going to just take 2 of your gems, they don't have to match, and you're going to unlock that tech tree item by placing your 2 gems there. That one in particular gives you 2 gems back, and again, 2 gems of your choice.
Mhm.
So this is kind of a gem laundering step here. You can throw in 2 and get 2 back of any color you want.
And you can do this multiple times? Or is
You
that a
cannot,
one-time
only
use?
once.
Okay.
Only once. And you leave the 2 gems that you spent to unlock it, you leave them on there to indicate that you've already done that.
Okay, perfect.
And
So
then, of course, you'll be eligible then to move to the higher level in the tech tree there.
All right, so then we've got this one here, which is mostly green screen, but it looks like flower to field.
Yeah, so these open green spots that we have out here on the gardens, these grass areas, this is the one time that you can cover up these grass areas with another tile. So here from the middle of our rondelle, we're actually going to, you would be able to take this token and send it and put it over any grass space. Now again, for you right now, that'd be a great play because this would not only unite all the flower beds here, but also give you 3 additional flowers to score at the end. So that'd be a pretty slick move.
Gotcha.
The very next one is really similar, but it's a 2 flower bed spot instead of a 1 flower bed spot.
So it's the 2 singular flower
this
beds.
would even be a good move because you could do this and expand your area. Even though it's slightly fewer, it's only 2 flowers versus the 3 I had just a moment ago.
But you could use that to link flower beds that are a little bit further away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Join stuff up.
All right, then we've got this here, which is unlocking your next worker.
And
what is this last one
make
here?
a guess there.
So it looks like
You're allowed to lock a card.
lock a card. What do you mean by that?
So one of those tree cards out there, if you can't afford it right now, but it's a really juicy card, it's a 10 or an 11 card that you don't want me to get because I've got maybe the right combination to buy it on my turn, you can claim it into your area and you've put it on hold or layaway. It was the very first layaway done in the desert. You can put it on layaway. I don't know how many of your viewers are going to know what that actually
Layaway,
means.
yeah.
Right? You got to be old enough
I
and
think
from the
Walmart
Midwest.
still does
maybe.
layaway.
So you can lock that up, and at a later time during your turn, you can spend enough gems to be able to play that card. So it kind of reserves that card for your use only.
All right. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead. So I'm doing the tech tree path here. I like your gem laundering scheme that you've got going. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trade in the 2 of my purple gems to put that on there. And that's going to unlock how about a red and a clear for me?
All right, a red and a clear.
And so then I've got my gems, and now I can make some trees, right?
Yep. So that was that step, and now you can purchase a tree or 2 or as many as you have money for.
So I've got a red, 2 clears and 2 reds, which would give me this tree right over here with the 11-pointer.
That's a nice one.
So then this goes on any of these open spots here.
Any
correct?
grass spaces. Now you probably, since you're working on flower beds over here, unless you're going to shoot for that bonus point flower bed here and commit to that, you may want to block me from linking my 2 flower beds over here.
You know, I think that's a great idea.
I think that's unfortunately a great idea for you. All right, I'm going to add the last little wrinkle in this tile placement.
Okay.
So you can never place any tile or any assistant so that 2 different assistants are placed on the same tile, on the same flower bed.
Okay.
In other words, were I to have an assistant here as well, that would be legal. But should I try to join these 2 flower beds by putting this tile in place?
That would be illegal.
That's an illegal play, absolutely. If I were to put a tile that had a flower bed that would join those flower beds, and now we're in the same flower bed, that's an illegal play as well.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
So because
So at
we're
no time-
not friendly in making our gardens.
We're
here.
not friendly. You're not even friendly with your own assistants because you can't even put a second one of your own assistants
There you go.
in the same flower bed.
You got to keep the workers isolated from each other.
They are. They're very solo working, very solitude creatures, these gardening assistants. So, all right. So that's the last twist to the placement, is that you can't ever have more than one, which also means I can never steal a flower bed from you, but I can also keep you from ever uniting and making your flower bed larger were I to somehow be able to claim this.
Very true.
Speaking of which.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
So here we go. So we'll move the watering can over. We'll reveal this one where I removed it from. And then I'll go ahead and place this one. So I wish that I could use my dastardly plan with the being able to place one of my assistants, but I can't. So I'm going to actually spend it over here to grow.
Oh, so right now you're looking to diversify your portfolio
Yeah,
of
I'm going to
fountains
do a
right
little
now.
bit of spread instead of instead of anything else, I'm actually going to come over here, take these 2 gems, and place this one right here.
All right.
And let's see. Oh, we didn't turn over a card here.
So that refills as soon as I buy one?
It does, yep.
Or at the end of my buy phase?
As soon as you buy one.
Oh, so I can keep
you have
potentially
access
cycling
to that card.
through that.
Exactly.
Okay,
so
cool.
you have access to 5 at all times. And it's not limited by what's out there. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of what you did and use 2 purple gems, which are pretty common, to unlock the same spot. And in return, I'm going to take a red and a white.
Oh, no.
And with that red and white, I'm going to go for that 10-pointer there on the end, if you would pass that to me.
Unfortunately,
2
I guess I'll be
reds,
nice and do
a
that.
white, and a purple, and I'll be able to take that. I'll cash these back into the bank. You'll refill for me. Thank you very much.
You got a little cheapy 6-point tree there.
And then this tree, I am so sorry. I'm going to return the favor there and block your points. Now, I didn't mention before, I apologize, but these are kept secret so that you can't easily total up how many points your opponent has.
Okay.
Obviously, it's bought publicly.
So if you've got a good memory, you can kind of keep track of
Sure,
it.
if you're counting the cards. So, all right, so that'll be my turn, and I'll have you go ahead. And
So what triggers endgame here?
endgame is when 2 stacks of these tiles are empty.
Mm-hmm.
When 2 stacks are empty, we complete. You took the first turn, so I would get my final turn. We each have the same number of turns by the end of the game. But when 2 stacks, when you've depleted the second stack, I'll get my last turn. If I deplete the second stack, then the game is immediately over.
Very cool. So how many players is Ishtar support?
Ishtar will play 2 to 4 players.
Mm-hmm. And playtime is about?
It's about, once you know the rules, it moves pretty quickly. It's about 45 minutes. Maybe with 4 players, you might quite approach that hour time frame.
Very cool. So not too long of a game then.
No. But the complexity is not in certainly in the rule set or the time, but it's the strategy you have to develop, and then the tactical ability that you have to be malleable with that, to be able to react to what either your plan wasn't working out, or
because some people will plant trees in your garden.
Trees right in the middle of your flower bed. You've got it exactly.
Very cool. So I wanted to make sure we had enough time to talk about the other game you brought to the table. So is there anything else that you wanted to cover here with Ishtar?
No, I think I'd just like to go over the final scoring now that we've got a little playthrough of it.
Sure.
So each of your flower beds that are controlled by one of your assistants, I'm going to score 1 point per flower here. So I'm going to score 1 point here. You would score 2 points total here. And then, because there's 1 flower and 1 flower, if these flowers have been included, obviously we'd include those. You have 2 spaces where you have flower beds attached to this fountain, so you would score this fountain.
Okay.
I have 1 space where I control flower beds, so I would control this fountain. And at this point, nobody controls the other fountains. There's some greenery
because you don't
coming in.
have your helper.
Nobody has any assistants out there.
Gotcha.
And then finally, we'd add in our points here. And if we had unlocked any of the bonuses up here at the top to be able to score bonus points, this one's interesting at the end of the game if you have additional gems left over in the middle there top. So each white gem you have left is worth 1 point, each red is worth 2 points, and each purple is worth 3 points. Now,
which is interesting because it looks like there's like a lot of purples out on the field there.
So you do have to be aware if somebody's just hoarding gems and hoarding gems, you have to start to wonder if that's what they're going to go for, especially if they're picking up all those cheap purples. So, in addition, any leftover, one of the scorings is that if you have any leftover meeples, assistants, that you haven't placed, you're going to score bonus points for those. So again, if somebody's holding back placing their assistants out there, it may be that they're shooting for that unplaced assistant bonus as well.
And that's a pretty beefy one. That's 7 points for each unused assistant there.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, and this is Ishtar, and we're proud of it. It plays very well, plays very easily, and so far, #1.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
that's very exciting.
Happy with that.
All right, so let's shift gears just a little bit here. So game number 2, and I'm gonna move this camera over so we can get a picture of it. But talk to me about what you have brought to the table today.
Sure. So this is Little Town. So Little Town is, we like to kind of think of it as my first worker placement game.
Aww.
So it's pretty cute. You're going to have workers. Do we want to shift down here, or do you want to take a look from over in your seat?
I think I can see it from
Fantastic. So, All right, so in Little Town, we're going to be placing our workers either out on the board where they harvest from the 8 spaces around.
Hmm.
So if I placed my worker here, I would be able to collect a blue cube, a fish, and a gray cube, a rock, and put those in my resource pile. All right. The other thing that a worker can be used for is to build a building. He gets placed down here in the builder's area, and then I can draft any of these tiles, pay the cost for building the building, and place it on the board on any open space. Any open space is the key, because if I put a builder out here to collect resources, it has to be on a grassy field without anything on it. And when I build a building, it has to be on any open grassy space as well.
Okay.
All right. So once I built it, I immediately score the points for my building, move up along the track, 3 points because I've scored 3. And what this building is going to do is, in the future, if I place one of my builders out, this would be a better play, to collect another fish, a wood, I can also activate this building and get a free wheat.
Oh, nice.
All right. However, if you place a builder in that same spot and I hadn't, you'd get to collect your resources, but for the privilege of using my wheat field and getting a wheat, you'd have to pay me a coin.
Oh, so I can still harvest the wheat from there, but I'm using your lovely wheat farm.
Exactly, exactly.
I
So
gotta pay up.
it's a little town with a lot of capitalism. So the board will get built up. There are a variety of different conversions that the different buildings will allow you to do. Here we can turn 2 stone into 5 points. This is just a free 2 points. Here we can turn in 3 coins. So as we place those, what I neglected to mention is I would place a house to indicate that it's mine. So
So you mark
obviously
which
we'd know
one's
in the
yours.
future which ones you had to pay for to be able to pay. So in addition to those, we're going to have secret objective cards that may be able to show that you can show has some sort of an objective, and at any time during your turn, if you complete one of those objectives, you can just show it and score those additional points.
Very cool. So I kind of wanted to go over the anatomy of one of these building cards, but just briefly,
Yeah.
because unfortunately they're a lovely shade of green, but our green screen doesn't play nice with that most of the time. So I promise these cards aren't invisible. Actually, look, I can superimpose it where you put it on the map. That'd be really cool like that, right? But so take me through what I'm seeing on the card.
Yeah, sure. So up in the upper left corner, let's start with that, is the cost.
Mhm.
So when you build the building, you need to turn in those resources to be able to build the building. The upper right is the points that you immediately score as soon as you build it.
Mhm.
And then the benefit of the building is down at the bottom. So if somebody activates that building, if it's my building, I don't have to pay again. If somebody else activates it, they'll pay me a coin. You can turn in 3 coins to be able to gain 5 points.
Oh, that's handy.
Yep. So
And
some are collecting resources, converting resources, gaining points.
so there's a pretty wide variety of what you're getting in there.
There is, and actually, this is the setup that I have with the 12 tiles that we start with. I'll have a teeny tiny little bird down in the corner. It's probably pretty tough to pick up and may even disappear if you show it on the green screen. But the bird will stand out, but everything else won't.
Yep, you can see Mr. Bird
There he
standing
is.
down there.
So the bird icon on these tiles indicates that's what we recommend for your first game, starter game. It kind of makes it a little bit more straightforward. But there is a nice variety of other tiles that we have that come with the game so that you can start to mix it up. These will be all the buildings that we have for the entire game.
Mhm.
So these buildings that are out of this game will never be seen during this game. So again, that variety is really there to be
Gives you
able
more
to
replayability. Then,
absolutely replayability goes up quite a bit. One other thing is the money. So why do we want the money? We start with 3 coins each, but
Too. Why do we want money? Come
well,
on.
in this little town, at the end of the game, you can convert some coins into points. But more importantly, when you're short that one resource you need, you can always buy a resource of any type with 3 coins.
All right.
All
So
right.
you could import that resource from afar.
Right, exactly, exactly. So the last part is at the end of the round, which is when I've used all of my workers. So I would place a worker, of course, then you would place a worker.
Mhm.
And really, there's only 2 choices: out here to collect resources and activate buildings, or here in the builder area to build one of these buildings.
Okay.
After all of them have been placed, we then have to feed your workers. This is also my first feed my workers game.
Oh no, I can't feed all of my
So
workers.
let's
What am
get
I gonna
used to
do?
that concept nice and young here. So each worker, it's really easy: 1 wheat or 1 fish for each worker.
Mhm.
If you don't have enough to feed your workers, it's painful. For each resource you're lacking, you lose 3 points.
Ooh.
And in a game where the track is only 60 points, of course, if you go over, we have tokens for going over. 3 points is actually a pretty big penalty, especially if you're down 3 resources or so.
That's pretty significant right
So you
there.
have to keep an eye on that and make sure that you've got your resources to feed your people. Of course, you can still use 3 coins to buy a fish or buy a wheat, but that's important as well.
So how much is this board filling up as we're going? Because I know you're saying that we're placing workers and then we're building buildings, but typically in a game, are we looking at this entire map getting filled up with buildings? Or?
Really not. I mean, there's only so many open grass spaces. The other thing we do after we feed our workers is all of our workers come back, but the houses stay on the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
There's 12 different buildings in the game, and then there are always 5 wheat fields because really we need to feed our people. So there'll be 17 buildings possible to be out here permanently throughout the course of the game, but the workers are placed on the open spaces and removed, and placed and then removed. After 4 rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, the game is over, and you calculate final scoring.
Oh, very cool. So final scoring is just based off of the objectives that you're completing there, and then any points that you're getting along the way.
Any points you're getting along the way. There are a few buildings that have little tweaks to them that they score once at the end of the game. I think there are 2 buildings that do that, and there are a few buildings that only score when you are between rounds. So at the end of the round, you remember to score those buildings as well. But I think only one of those is in the start tile, and there's a little symbol for at the end of the round when you regroup your meeples. That's when they come back, and your builders. That's when they come back, and you score that one.
So what's the player count and the time on this one then?
Little Town will play 2 to 4, and it's probably about 45 minutes or so to play through the game, especially if you've got 4 players.
Okay, and I know you made a couple references as like my first worker placement and stuff. What's the recommended ages on this game here?
We've got it aged at, I think it's 7 and 8 and up. I think it is.
So getting them in young on the worker placement action. Then.
Well, I think it's a great way to be able to introduce kids to the worker placement idea, and be able to, especially if parents, if somebody else enjoys playing worker placement games. This is also really light that adults could play it, especially if they're not used to playing our style of games that our community is really into. If you're used to playing more common games, this really kind of eases in and takes out the maybe a little bit of the barrier to getting into it. So, and I was just heard that it's ages 10 and up. So I think certainly a lot of you out there are going to go, oh, my 7-year-old, my 8-year-old, and I think that's true too. But in general, the concept of having to feed your workers and all that is, we're recommending 10 and up.
Very cool. So it looks like the game itself has the opportunity to, like, you said it's very entry, gateway-ish, but it looks like it's got a decent amount of strategy in there where you can really sit down and get thinky with an opponent on that and puzzle
certainly.
it out. Yeah.
Yep. And remember, you only get to collect resources when you place on an empty space. So you can start to block off some of these areas and make, especially if I produce stone, I may make it really hard for you to be able to place a builder out here to be able to collect stone. So you have to come to me to get your stone.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like I don't play games nicely most of the time, so I definitely can see that you cornering the market there.
Sure,
being the premier stone salesman in your little town here.
Right, exactly, collecting all that money. And then the board is also double-sided, so
really?
you can flip it over, and it's got a different artistic layout, and so you can add replayability that way as well.
So different layout to the board then as well, with the resources being moved around?
Yeah, so the resources that are out here are shifted around in different areas, and so there's a little bit of a different pattern to be able to do that.
Very cool. So that's Little Town. Where can our viewers go to find out more information about Little Town then?
Little Town is certainly, there's lots of information on our website. We also will have information spread through BGG regular sources to be able to look up rules, see photos, etc. But we'd be happy if you came to see us.
Very cool. So I see one more box on the far end of the table there.
Sure.
What are we looking at there?
This is us capturing on your. Or do I need to bring it over to us?
Yeah, I can do something like that.
All right. So this is Laserdrive. Laserdrive's our expansion for Decrypto. Decrypto's our popular word game where you're playing in teams and trying to pass codes to your teammates. but without letting the opposing team break the code and figuring out what some of your words are.
Gotcha.
So that's our base game. This adds a really interesting element that incorporates a topic that you have to, every time you give your 3 word clues, if you're familiar with Decrypto, when I give my 3 clues, one of them must comport with the topic that's current out and flipped over. So each time this will change, but in this example, a word beginning with P, at least one of my clues has to be a word beginning with P.
Oh, okay. So it makes it just a little bit more challenging then.
It does. But if you take that to the extreme and all 3 of your clues are a word that begin with P, you get one of these laser tokens. So getting one of these red laser tokens,
I know that'll show up well.
that'll show up really well. One of those red laser tokens, when you have 2 of those, you can announce during your team's turn at the end of the round, you can say, we'd like to guess one of your words. So we trade in 2 of these that we've accumulated, and we try to guess one of their 4 words exactly.
Okay.
All right? If we can guess their word exactly, we get one of the intercept, the win condition tokens. Of course, in the base game, 2 of those win tokens, 2 of those intercept tokens wins the game for you. So if we can name one of their words, we think your word number 4 is potato. If that's correct, we get one of the intercept tokens, and we're halfway to winning the game.
One step closer to victory.
Exactly, exactly. So certainly it incorporates a little bit tighter element for at least one of your clues, and gives you another way to be able to try to guess the other team's words. And we were finding that everybody was pretty much doing that anyhow at the end of the game. Wait, let me see if I can guess what your words are.
I think I knew what you were talking about.
That your word number 3 is potato. So, all right. So some of the other clues, some of the other categories, I'm sorry, things like a television series, a made-up word.
Oh, so they're all over the place then.
They're all over the
place. It's not just
place.
manipulating the letters in there as well.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Cool. Okay.
So, yep, all over the place. So that's Laserdrive, and that's our expansion that's just released here.
Very cool. So basically, where can our viewers go to find out everything that you're doing with IELLO? Because it's a lot.
Yep, www.yellousa.com.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on while I had you here today, Stephen?
We're just happy to be here, happy to have you on the show, and happy to be at Gen Con.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks
Thank
again
you.
for Rosie Pony, too. I'm super stoked about that on that Twist Gaming Kickstarter. But thank all of you for watching at home. We're going to take a little intermission right now, but we'll be coming back in just a few moments with more coverage here from Gen Con 2019. Signing off for now, I'm Matt. Have a good one, everyone.